Hello and welcome to another Vicki Boutin Design Team mixed media project. This layout I'm working on is part of the mood board challenge for this week. And as you can see, I've already laid down the white gesso from Vicki Boutin through this stencil. I'm just showing you how I laid it down the center area of the page, and now I'm taking the red orange art crayon, and I'm using the Vicki Boutin stencil brush, and we're just going to go back over this dried gesso. And I want to create more dimension by adding color into the center using the same exact stencil over the dried gesso, because it's going to create a 3D effect. It's going to really pop off the page once we add the color. I'm mostly adding the color to the center of the layout, or the center of the flower, so that it does give that dimensional look. And you'll be able to see that once I take the stencil off. This is sped up about 4 times, but once I take the stencil off, you'll be able to see where the orange is concentrated near the center of the flower more. It doesn't show up quite so much with the stencil on, but we'll do the reveal here. And there you go. You can see how that is, the color brings out the details on the stenciling. So we're going to do the same thing to all the flowers on the layout. And I really like how this looks. It adds another layer of dimension to the white gesso. And the stencil brush I'm using is the smaller one out of the Vicki Boutin stencil brush pack. So you can see I'm really concentrating towards the center of the flowers. And I like how this looks in the end. I'm just placing it back over, and whenever I use her stencils, I always use a stencil spray adhesive. So when I'm mashing it down, I'm just making sure the stencil adhesive is adhering. That way it won't shift around when I'm working with it. And the stencil adhesive works for several times. Like, you can use this. I only sprayed it once before I began the layout, and I didn't have to spray it again. It still stuck. So now you can see we're going to move down the layout. I'm just adding more of that red-orange crayon to my palette there. And I'll swirl the stencil brush in the dry art crayon just to make the centers of all the flowers the same. And my idea on this layout is I wanted to follow like the mood board had paper strips down the center, and I wanted to do that. My sewing machine is broken, so I had to use another way to add texture to the page. That's why I chose the gesso through the floral stencil, and this is the stencil from the Field Notes collection by Vicki Boutin and American Crafts. So you can see it's creating a really nice soft effect in the center. So I'm peeling that off, and you can see how that looks. I'm just showing you the stencil has those 3 flowers on it. Now I'm going to move the art crayons up out of the way there. I just have them in the shot so you can see that I'm using the warm art crayons from Vicki Boutin. So now what I can go about doing is I have a sample page there off to the left, so I have already cut all of my paper strips. So we're going to bend, tear, crunch. We're going to create lots of dimension on the layout by using different paper strips from all the patterns that have this orange coral color. And once I bring my photo in, you'll understand why I'm using a monochromatic design here. So we're using shades and tints of orange, so one color is monochromatic. This is a really red orange, and you can see I'm using the notebook paper, the brown, and all my colors are coming directly from the photo. So I'm going to trim this one off just so that you can still see the gessoed background flowers. I really like to create lots of different layers. So you have the background paper that looks like it has mixed media. You have the mixed media gesso flowers, another layer with the art crayon, and then another layer with the paper strips. And then we're also going to add some embellishments and the photo. So it'll be about 5 layers. I like these strips that look like they're painted because also on the mood board there's some painty stripes. I'll try to bring in a picture at the end of what the mood board looks like so that you can join in. And some of these I'm just trimming off the ends so that the flowers in the background, you'll be able to see them still. And for the word art, these are the stickers from the All the Good Things, and I just left the backing on them so that I'll be able to pop them up off the background. They're not going to stick down flat because I have not removed the adhesive backing. So I'm just laying down the different, I've got the brown from the Collect and Document paper, and I fussy cut these black and white florals because my daughter has a sweater on in the photo that's black and white stripes. So I really wanted to bring in some of the black and white for a neutral. So you can see I have several neutrals. I've got brown, I've got black and white on the page just to add some interest to the page since it is monochromatic and just using one color. The neutrals aren't considered a color, so. Now these 2 word strips or 3 word strips are going to form sort of the title for the page. I won't put a big title, so most of the focal point will be these strips down the center. And I really wish my sewing machine wasn't broken right now because I would like to stitch down the center of these. So I'm just placing the green die cuts here in sort of a triangle across the layout on either side of the paper strips. So you can see how I'm adding the die cuts, and some of these are going to be popped off the page with foam dots. Some of these are going to be adhered with ATG directly to the background. And here I'm starting to adhere everything now that I have I really like how the design looked. I'm going to start adhering everything as the final part of assembling the layout now that I have it how I want it. So some you'll see here, they're really bent up, they're really folded and torn, just to give lots of texture and dimension to the layout. And some of these, that one's up on foam dots, foam squares. And then I really like this notebook paper because it has some of the blue. Little tiny blue dots that really aren't, because there's so much warm on the layout, you don't really notice the blue dots, but it kind of cools it off a little bit. And I cut up that paintbrush and pen paper. I really like this one that I'm putting down right now because it has more of the black and white. And I'm bending up, you'll see I'm bending up the edges of each paper strip just so that you can tell that these are different papers. There's that paintbrush stroke paper I really like. It's the really light tint of the light red-orange. So peach. And I cut one of the brown strips that had the moth, the black stamped moths on the background paper. So you can see with the ATG, I'm just using it on the very center of each paper strip. So I'm having an idea that I want to create a triangle with the die cuts, some on the left, some on the right, in 3 different areas across the page. I'm really bending some of these up almost in half because by the time you go to adhere everything down, they do flatten out. So there's some foam dots, foam squares I'm adding, just so that there's a lot of interest in on the page because of the fact that the interest is not coming from the different colors. So I wanted to add a lot of texture with the neutrals. My Scotch Quick Dry is clogged, so I'm going to switch back to the ATG and try to get it going once again. And I'm having to add some more. There it goes. Now it's going. I'm having to add some more strips, so occasionally you'll see me disappear and I'm just going to get some more paper strips. I reorganized my craft room, inspired by the Scrap Gals. Tiffany and Tracy had been reorganizing their craft rooms So I jumped on the bandwagon there and started reorganizing mine, and I have 3 drawers now for my Vicki Boutin Design Team stuff, supplies. So one is the paper now, and then one is scraps, and one is embellishments. That way I don't have to rifle through the 3 drawers of stuff, and I can have each. And it was a lot quicker to put this layout together because I had the separate drawers, one for scraps, one for embellishments in the field notes line, and one for the big papers. So that works really well. Now I know if I want to use a little tiny piece of paper, I know to go to the scraps section. So I might show you guys a little room tour now that I've updated it and gotten some more supplies. Now that I'm on 3 different design teams, I get quite a few supplies every month or so, every other month. With each new release, we get plenty of supplies, so it's a constant reorganizing of the craft room. And here you can see I fussy cut some more of the smaller black and white flowers, and this one I was just adhering some paper to the back of this so that I could use it not as a sticker, even though it's a sticker from the All the Good Things collection. I like this one that's the darker orange, and I want to make sure that I have spaced it out all the way down the layout. Here I'm cutting, even though that is brown and white, I still like the fact that it has the moss on it again. And I have some wider strips, some narrower strips. They're just all hand cut, so they're not going to be the same, and I really like that. The way it looks really handmade. I didn't use my paper trim at all on this layout, so except for the photo at the very end. So it's really simple. Like you can do this with minimal supplies, just your pack of paper and die cuts from Vicki Boutin, your stencils, and some gesso and art crayons, and a pair of scissors. So I didn't even use my sewing machine until I can get it repaired. I guess I could have tried to pierce the page and hand stitch, but I wasn't sure it would go through all of the foam dots and layers I have. So this is a previous page I had splattered some of the blue on. So we're going to just keep adding until we get to all the way to the bottom, almost not completely flush with the bottom of the background page. So I'm almost down there, and I'll be placing the photo right where that bird is. So I just kind of wanted to visually make sure that the flowers were seen, and I placed the die cuts on early so that I would know where to put the word stickers so that you could still be able to read it. So sometimes I haven't adhered these down, but I went ahead and showed you how I was placing them. I like that notebook paper that I just placed. And I'm showing you that's the triangle. All that pointing and moving my hand around is me showing you the visual triangle created by the 3 green die cuts. So I'm sorry the lighting goes all wonky. I accidentally turned on the overhead light. I tried to repair it, but this is about as good as it gets. So here I'm using my old Creative Memories paper trimmer here to just trim the photo and leaving a white border. And you can see why I created this page with lots of orange, because there's a rusty tractor behind my daughter. So I have the final shots. After I put this photo up on some foam squares, I'll have the final shots, and you'll get to see what this layout looks like in non-wonky lighting. So I just have to take the tabs off of here so that I can adhere the photo. You'll see the final die cut, so I have 3 places with the green, and I'm going to put this on with my T-square so it's not crooked. I always put the photo on crooked if I don't use my T-square. So thank you so much for joining me. I love that you guys can come here and then join in the Vicki Boutin Mixed Media community on Facebook. Thanks for joining me. Bye.